All right, we are back and hopefully going to finish up the project this time around. Again, if you've not somehow missed the first part of this video, we're going to be finishing up the suspension install on my 2015 BMW M3. This is an F80 chassis. This car has about 165,000 miles on it. The original suspension was completely blown. It was lowered, but now we've got the Bilstein suspension going on. And as of today, we're just finishing up a small couple of loose ends. So really what we've got left to install is this strut boot, which is a pretty easy part of things. And then somewhere, I think it's probably right here, we've also got to install this new sway bar end link for the passenger side, because when I was removing the old sway bar link, the threads got damaged and I'm not able to basically tighten this thing up as it's supposed to be, and I don't feel comfortable with it being on the car like that with how this car gets driven. So we're going to put this new part on, take apart the suspension, throw the new boot in since the old one's kind of trash, get everything put back together here, get all the braces and everything back on, and then be able to take this thing for a test drive tonight. Take this thing on a test drive tonight and see how it feels with the new setup. Hopefully get an alignment done tomorrow, and then we'll be ready for the car meet on Sunday, and subsequently my friends in town for the next few days doing some driving around Asheville. So hopefully this will be all freshened up and ready to go. So let's dive in. All right, I'm happy to report the rest of the install for the passenger side here went pretty smooth. You can see there's that new boot that's actually inserted compared to the old boot. This boot is in way better shape than the one that was on the passenger side. You can still see it's kind of torn, and obviously this is supposed to be one piece, and you can see there's still, you know, there's pieces, coils, well, that might be the bottom. It's just all compressed and old and worn out. So I was thinking of reusing this, but when I saw the passenger, the driver's side as bad as it is, I figured these need to get tossed as well. But this was that end link that actually kind of looks just a little bit out of round as well. But the part that I had screwed up, and this is operator error, no fault of the part, is right here on the end. So because I'm just a retard and forget sometimes that when you're doing stuff that has to do with the sway bars up in the front here, you kind of need to get the whole car up off the ground. Otherwise, if you have one side down and one side up, it puts tension on the bar and it makes it pretty much impossible to get this out. So when I was removing this end link from the old strut right here, I was doing what I typically do with ball joints and things and just starting to hammer it out. And in the process, I ended up marring up some of the threads. Now, me trying to get creative, I decided just to get the Dremel out and trim off a couple of the threads that were marred. And sure enough, I mean, it does work. I can thread this on here. But the problem then became, and I just didn't think this through because it was way too late in the night and I was trying to salvage and get this thing back together, is because this has the little Torx head insert so you can keep this thing from spinning around. I basically trimmed out too much of that, whereas you can see here, there's barely enough room to get a tool in there, and it was just easily stripping. And it was just a little bit marred up from me cutting it off with a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. Now, looking at it after the fact, I probably could have found some other ways to keep this thing tight, keep it from spinning and get the nut on there. But honestly, I'd rather just do it correctly. And you can see here is the new part that went on and off very smoothly. So I'll finish getting everything buttoned up here, get this all put together, and then have the rest of the car put together. So let's finish it up. All right, everything is back together and buttoned up, braces on, no extra bolts, which is always nice to see. Let's go ahead and crank this up for the first time, and I don't know what to expect. I don't know if there's gonna be any codes with the suspension stuff being the way that it is. See if the keys are even in here. Nope. All right, now that I've got my keys, let's see what happens. We got a chassis code. We may have to reset that. It's kind of what I was worried about, but we can read that here in a minute and see what it is. Let's go take it for a drive. All right, so I'm probably gonna have to get some stuff recalibrated, or maybe it's just an alignment that needs to be redone because I can't get the EDC to work with the chassis code. Reading online, there's some sensors, and it's some sensors that I've checked and rechecked throughout the whole install process and really didn't feel that they were connecting well. But it could be also that with having everything apart, I've messed up some calibration So I don't have my EDC, and I'm not exactly sure what settings these things are on, but holy crap, this thing is on rails now. It's a completely different car now. It's insane. I freaking love it. I'm only just disappointed because I was really wanting to see what it was going to be with the different EDC settings, the Sport, the Comfort, Sport Plus, because that was always one of my favorite things about the suspension on this car, is being able to tailor it for whatever my driving was at that time. But this feels so much better. It's so crazy when you put good suspension on a car, the car just feels faster. I don't even just mean like handling, but when the car is not rocking back and forth so much, you can actually get a lot more of the acceleration. You feel it more. It's like a more tight, solid car. So I'm happy with the feel. I'm happy with how it drives. Now I just got to figure out the coding side of things and figure out the sensors, but super smooth. All right, so a little update. I got everything back together and noticed there's a little bit of a knocking in the rear end after driving it for about a full day. Took everything back apart. And as you can see with this here, this inner bushing on the rear shock mount is completely toast. You can see it's starting to come off in chunks. So what's happening is this thing's been moving around in here and just making a knocking vibration noise. And as you can see here with the new part, the bushing and everything is intact and has not been smashed to smithereens. So interestingly enough, this strut mount is in two pieces. This upper portion is where the sensor kind of lives in the housing here. So that comes off of this piece and goes back onto the new piece with a new gasket. So we'll get that all put together, put back on the car and get it back together. All right, so we've got the car back down on the ground. All the rear suspension is back together with that new shock mount, so much better. And as you can see here, the last piece that we installed was this front wheel acceleration sensor. This goes on the top side of the strut right over here. There's this wire that goes up into the fender liner, and pretty easy to pull this stuff out. As you saw before when we cranked this up, I was getting chassis codes or codes through the suspension, and I was identifying that there were some sensor issues. So I took this car in with a buddy of mine with a scan tool and was basically noticing that there was no signal coming from this sensor whatsoever. So either it got damaged in the install. Somebody was telling me that sometimes if you use an impact on these things, it can rattle the electronics inside here and cause them to short or break, or they just get moisture. I mean, who knows? I thought there was a crack on there, but there's no telling what happens with these things. But it's always a good idea to replace the wire at the same time, apparently, just to make sure there's no issues with these. And I'm fine with that too, because I was having some complaints about how the plug was fitting up in there. So I'm happy to have a new sensor and a new cord. So moment of truth. Let's crank this thing up, see if we get any chassis codes. Fingers crossed this goes well. And I don't need to replace any more of these sensors. Oh boy. Hey! Look at that, we're back. Efficient, comfort. Sport, Sport Plus, Sport Plus. That's exactly where I wanted my M2 to sit. If we cycle through the EDC modes, oh yeah, there we go. So nice to have that back again. Now we'll have to really take it on a drive and see how it is. All right, so far so good. We're in my driver 1 setting, which is everything soft. Well, soft, efficient, whatever you want to call it, comfort. And man, what a difference. I drove this the other day when it still had the chassis code. So it's basically on everything Sport Plus, and this feels fantastic. This is just kind of like a normal set of corners and bumps. There's actually a big bump right here in this corner. Let's see how it does. Oh yeah, pretty well composed. I'm actually really happy with that comfort setting. And then if we go full stiff, oh yeah, it definitely that is such a difference instantly. Of course, with the sports steering, it just gets super heavy. I'm not always in love with that, but every little ripple in the road, I don't know if you can just tell from my hand, but every little ripple in the road is now felt through the car. And if I go back to M1 or my full comfort settings, the ripples go away. You can still kind of hear them as the tires touch the ripples, but the vibration through the car goes away. And more importantly, since I did that rear shock mount, we do not have any knocking or banging around in the rear suspension now. Everything feels nice and tight. Very happy with this. I was really happy with it when I drove it on the tail of the Dragon the other day, even though it was still on full stiff. Now I'm really happy that I have my drive modes back, that I can ride it on the comfort setting. Yeah, this is awesome. Definitely recommend these shocks.